Good afternoon, everybody. Hi. My name is Enes. I am one of the co-founders of Women of Fantasy Football with that guy right there who hates the attention, so I do it for fun. That is Josh Hudson. These are some of the women of fantasy football. They are Women of Fantasy Football alumni, and they are just badass women in this space who have a lot of knowledge on this sport, on this subject, and life in general. And we at Women of Fantasy Football like to say it's not what's between your legs, but it's what's between your ears. It's what you know. I don't care who you are. If you know fantasy sports, you know sports. If you don't, you don't. So to start this show off, we have some questions that we prepared them with that we're just going to ask them. And then at some point, if you have questions, you get to ask them as well. So are you guys ready? Are you guys ready? They're more ready than you are. So. All right. So we'll start with Stacy. Lauren, will you hand her that mic? So, who was your biggest influence in your life growing up, and did that play any part of your love of sports? It should already be
It's on. Okay. Yeah. So my parents, I would have to say, definitely biggest influences in my life. My dad and I started playing fantasy football together when I was 12. And back, in the days where you had the magazines, right? So you had to look through all that. You had to phone in your lineups every week, look at the newspaper to get the scores. Those of you youngins probably don't know what newspapers are. But, so, yeah, what? But yeah, both my parents, huge influences to me, always so supportive in anything that I did. And I know my dad especially, and he has passed away several years ago now, but always just so supportive of me being involved in sports and, playing fantasy and that kind of thing. So I would definitely have to say my parents.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Stacy. Oh, I just realized that. My bad. Okay, so while Stacy has this mic, before anybody else answers that question, introduce yourself and tell us who you contribute with.
Okay. So my name is Stacy Perez. I am from Tampa, Florida, and I am with Fantasy and Frames. Yeah.
Hola a todos, I'm Gemma Martinez from NFL Fantasy in Español and Football Goes MX. And the question will be the same, right? Okay. Well, okay, sorry.
I am Lauren Carpenter. You may know me as Stepmom Lauren. I work for FTN, and I have a radio show on Sirius XM every Saturday morning, 9 to 11, Channel 87. Make sure you listen. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you very much.
And I don't know if you can have more fun at 9 a.m. on a Saturday.
You can't have any more fun than us at 9 a.m. because we're nuts.
It was just a great listen. I'm Britt Flinn from Fantasy Alarm and Better Sports Network. I am one of the co-hosts of A Better Morning, Monday through Friday, the Alarm Fantasy Football Show, Lightning Round, and Britt's Fantasy Blitz. So, yeah, don't think I forgot anything.
They're on a break, but her story is also super dope. My name's Kacey Kasem. I have a podcast called Get Real with Kacey Kasem, and it's a behind the scenes of the fantasy football industry podcast where I talk to all kinds of people in the fantasy football space. Scott Fish, Mike Wright with the fantasy footballers, Matthew Berry, all kinds of awesome people. Most of these ladies and the ones that haven't been on the podcast will be on the podcast, so go check that out. Thank you.
I'm Kelly Singh. You can find me on Twitter at Kelly in Phoenix. I'm the VP of Marketing at Trophy Smack officially. Unofficially, you probably see me do a lot of things with Club Fantasy, co-host of Women of Fantasy Football, the Sick Podcast with Kelly Singh if you like the Cardinals, Who's Your Caddy if you like golf. So I'll catch you around on, I still call it Twitter, so find me there.
Thank you, ladies. All right, Gemma, to you.
Okay, who was my biggest influence in my life, right?
Yeah.
Well, my family is my biggest influence. They showed me how to be more respectful with people, even doesn't matter the time or the situation, and they encourage me to follow my dreams. And one of my the best advice it was from my grandfather, that even the sex in Mexico, women's are like, well, in that time, they were very like machismo, and yeah, and but not enough today. But he told me even my sex, I have to do more things, and I have to work harder, and I remember those words every day, because I think that right now in this industry we have to make more things, right? And I always am thinking about him, and I think that he will be my biggest influence.
Yeah, I'm going to echo a very similar sentiment. Family was huge. I grew up with 2 older brothers. They're 6 and 8 years older than me. I did not know I was a girl for a long time because I wanted to do everything they did. The sports, the watching of sports, the cursing, the yelling. I was like, this is my life. So as a woman, you do kind of have to step it up. You got to do twice as much. But that's a question. Answer for another question, I think, a little bit later. But yeah, so my parents and my 2 brothers really got me into the love of just sports, playing sports, and being super duper competitive. And that is just translated into fantasy football.
So I'm kind of the opposite here. I started watching football with my dad. Like, we liked the Cowboys. That was a thing. But as far as actually playing sports, being involved in sports, y'all, I grew up on a farm. There were no organized activities or opportunities for me to play sports, okay? So I think when I became an adult, chasing the pigs, man, getting the cows back in their pens. So when the opportunity arose as an adult to kind of branch out and like move to another city and figure out what I wanted to do, I just gravitated towards my love of football and met some really awesome people in this space, obviously. All of you ladies, everybody out there. And I think y'all have been the biggest influence on me, to be honest.
She just totally one-upped all of us.
Yeah.
She really did. We're like, our family. She's like, you guys.
So not these guys, but no, I'm just kidding. Obviously, growing up in the Dallas area, my family, big Cowboys fans. Dad's right in the audience right there again. Mom and Dad raised me right, Cowboys fan. Yeah, this is what's up. So obviously, family is a big part of getting started for me. And then I played a lot of sports in high school. I didn't, go pro with the football or anything, but I've been known to throw a spiral now and then. Maybe not. And also, these I'm going to take her answer and just roll with it, but I wasn't chasing pigs. I was chasing my sister around. Anyway, that's my backstory. Thanks, Dad. You're awesome.
My story is very similar to Stacy's, I believe. My dad played fantasy everything when I grew up, and I was fascinated by it. The pens, the papers, the pencils, the house full of people. It was the most invigorating time of the year for us, and he loved every team because of that. So when people ask me, oh, who's your favorite team? I'd be like, all of them. They're all my favorite team, and I have my dad to thank for that. He's not with us anymore, but I tattooed him on me, so it's with me, and I carry that with me every time I do a show or write a piece, because I feel like dads, you play a bigger role in your daughters' lives than you may realize, and I hope that they're gonna look back on every moment that you took to spend with them, whether it's, I'll start crying, whether it's drafting a team or showing up for a game or just taking a photo with them before they walk out the door. We remember those things, so.
So as they have said, and as Lauren alluded to, being women in this space, we do have to work twice as hard. We have to prove ourselves 10 times more than men simply because we're women. So on that note, what has been the hardest thing that you have dealt with as a content creator in this space?
Ooh, I I should have picked my seat a little bit differently because I didn't know that I was going to be going first with all these questions. Honestly, yeah. Oh, really close. Oh, this is much better. Okay. I think the hardest thing for me was because I have just only been doing content creation since like January, is really just kind of like believing in myself and knowing that, I have something to contribute and like what I'm sharing is meaningful for people. Kind of like that like imposter syndrome that we all hear about. I think honestly, that's probably been the biggest thing for me is to try to get over that and just be confident in what I'm sharing with everybody. So.
And I think that me too, to know myself that I have to do things and to be better, I think that that's what will be that more difficult thing, that I have to believe in me and to know that I can do things. That's the most.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. These ladies are awesome. So I think for me, I'm going to echo that same thing. You have to have that confidence. Sometimes that can be hard to not only foster in yourself, but when you're seeking it out from other places and you don't get it, it feels kind of crappy. My biggest thing that is a challenge is having to qualify myself. So when I say like, oh, I'm a fantasy football analyst, they're like, yeah, okay. Like, do you get paid for it? Like, do you know what a quarterback is? I'm like, oh my God. Just because I'm a chick doesn't mean I don't know what football is. That's, I think, the biggest part. Actually, my husband can attest to this. We were at a bar, and I was talking to this dude who loves fantasy football. I'm like, yeah, he has no idea who I am. Totally fine. And he's like, you know what you need to start doing? You should look at data and stats. And I'm like, oh, wow, should I? Thank you. Because I didn't realize that. It's just that kind of having to qualify yourself first, that you know what football is, you know what fantasy football is, and you can actually contribute different things, smart things to the space. It seems a lot harder when you're a chick because you do have to do twice as much, work twice as hard, prove yourself that much more just to prove that you can be up here on this stage working with these amazing women and men that are in the industry as well.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off that a little bit and say that not only do you have to qualify yourself that you belong in this space, but the anxiety aspect of putting yourself out there. Oh, did I steal yours, Kacey? I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh, so sorry.
I think she should just say everything because she's literally taking the best of what we all have to say.
Lauren. I just, putting yourself out there and knowing that you are going to be subject to criticism, because let's face it, we're not right about everything 100% of the time. I mean, with football, if it's 50-50, then I think that that's usually pretty good. And people are going to be out there and always try to cut you down. And the thing that you don't remember is all of your wins. You remember this one guy who said this one thing that like really knocked your confidence off of its tower. And it's very important to realize that internet trolls exist. They are not a reflection of who you are as a person or who you are as an analyst.
To piggyback off the piggybacking, I have anxiety, as I'm sure a lot of us do. That was my biggest struggle when I started. I don't really give out fantasy advice anymore. I kind of found what I was good at, or like to think I'm good at, which is interviewing people that are in this space. But it's nerve-wracking to have to interview, not have to interview, but want to interview somebody, but you're like shaking like I am right now, right? And once you get into it, though, it's amazing, and like the anxiety just kind of lifts off your shoulders. I had to learn that. I've gone out of my way to try to fix my anxiety. Starting that podcast was to kind of get out of my comfort zone, to kind of tell myself, I can do this if I really try, right? You just have to have that confidence, and mental health is very important. Going to therapy has been helpful for me when it comes to my anxiety, and just being able to have a conversation with somebody and actually like sit down and listen and not just ask a question and then space off into wherever. So my wife will say I still space off and don't listen, but I listen to the people I actually podcast to. So yeah, that's my thing.
I actually feel like there hasn't been any one thing that feels very difficult. I would like to thank the community that I feel I've cultivated for myself. If you don't think that you can cultivate your own community, you're wrong. You can. And anytime I have felt down or if anybody has come at me, I have not had to say anything. You guys do. So I want to thank you for being so supportive of all of our work, because without you, my circle would be far sadder, and it's very uplifting and positive, and I'm so grateful for that.
All right, to basically piggyback off of what Kelly just said, we do a lot of piggybacking around here. That's what women do. We support each other, we help each other, and we just carry each other. How can others, namely men, be better advocates? I was going to start with you anyway,
I'll just
Kelly.
pick up there. So how can you be better advocates?
For women in the
Many of
fantasy
you-
sports industry. There
I'm
we go.
seeing a lot of faces in this room that I really count on. So to be a better advocate, share our content. Not just share our content, read it or listen to it too, because on top of that, give your opinion on our content. What did you like about it? And tell your friends what you liked about it. And the more commonplace it is that you're listening to Britt or Lauren or Kacey, the more common it's going to be for them to tune in, because that's now their favorite fantasy show. So the way you can advocate for us is just by consuming the content and telling your friends how much you love it.
Just start at that end. Take it, Kacey.
Yeah, okay, we'll start at this end then. All right. Thanks for starting that off. So, yeah, I mean, I haven't had too many issues with people coming at me for my gender or coming at me for this or that. But I like she was saying earlier about you guys stepping up and kind of just having our backs. Just having our backs is awesome. And to see so many people being like, we don't care that you're a woman. We're all like, we all like the same thing. We all enjoy fantasy football. We all enjoy putting out content. We all enjoy having crazy takes. And that's just what it is. So I look at it like that, and I just appreciate the people who stand up for us and appreciate our work, because we appreciate what you guys do as well.
Yeah, the standing up is a big thing. Like, if you see somebody post like a nasty tweet or DM or whatever, like, call it out, say something. Like, let them know that that behavior is not appreciated and it's not welcomed. This isn't the 1950s. This is 2023. We have a spot. We belong here. We know what we're talking about, and we're not going to take any S talking.
I think you could say the word, Britt.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah. I was just going to shout it out, but I won't be that crass. I think just by doing everything you're doing right now. I mean, I see all my friends, my faces here, just being here, listening to us, having an interest in what we're doing, saying hi, whether or not that's in person. It could be on X. Is that what we're calling it? Like, that sounds so weird.
It will forever be Twitter.
It's just Twitter, social media, whatever, and being
Screw
kind.
Elon.
And like what Britt was saying, you know, if you see something, say something. I'm sorry, that's very cheesy, but yeah, I mean, like, stand up for us, help us out, and just be, as like Kelly said, being the supportive person, having our backs, reading our content, listening to our content, because writing is hard. Talking about this is not easy either. We all like to contribute that because we want to do the same thing for y'all. So just being here, listening to us, supporting us in the way that you're doing right now, it's leaps and bounds takes us in the right direction.
I agree with all of you girls. Also, I think that we have sorry. Okay, find a way to make us feel more included in the industry. For me in Mexico, we are only two girls, me and Renee, African NFL. And it's very difficult sometimes to get in the industry. Also, we have people like Mauricio or another kind of person that support us, but it's difficult to us to make this effort in Spanish. And also, I think that promoting and including more girls, not only like making content like us, like, I don't know, this beautiful lady, Rachel, too, she's writing some articles for women in fantasy football. I think that you need to know us because our content, and all of you supporting us is very cool, but to share that content, it will be better.
I mean, I can't say anything different than what any of these ladies just said because they were all exactly spot on. So I mean, I can't even begin to express how important it is and just how good it feels to be in a community that's so welcoming and supportive. And I think that's kind of how you have to advocate for women, is just continuing to be welcoming, supportive, of all the women in your life that are participating in fantasy football in any way that they can.
So I'm also going to add, on top of advocating for women content creators in this space, advocate for women in this space, women as players in general, because it's still a predominantly male-dominated industry and hobby. And if you know a friend who likes football or just says, hey, what is this fantasy football? That is your opportunity to go, let me tell you something. And there's a bunch of women on this stage. There's a bunch of women in this audience that you can point them to. We will gladly pull them in and pull them under our wings because we are all about just bringing others in because there's not enough of us. Sorry, guys. A lot of you are great, but there's not enough of us.
And can I say something else?
Yes.
This reminded me, when you have a home league and there's only one girl in it, don't be that guy and call out, well, she's the only girl in the league, because that separates us and makes us feel like less inclusive and that, oh, it's surprising that she's doing as well as she's doing. That just made me think about that. And I just,
Remember, between your
just
ears,
treat us
not
like
your legs.
equals.
It's what matters.
And
All
we're
right.
going to win anyway, so it
Exactly.
doesn't matter.
That's why they get really upset, is because they lose to a girl. We're not sorry. All right, Stacy, back to you. Was there ever an instance or exchange that pushed you towards giving this up?
Okay, so I think I mentioned earlier, this is just such a new thing for me. I've only really been doing this since January, so the answer for me is no at this point, just because it's still so new. And hopefully I never have a feeling like that or an experience like that. So I'm going to have to pass it to the other ladies. But yeah, and it's not for me at this time.
Stand by.
That's so good. Well, my answer is yes. Sometimes in social medias, they can be very rude and they can be disrespectful, I think that is the word. And sometimes when I read that comments, I get upset, obviously, but I do doubt of myself to being a good content, because I know that maybe there will be a lot of trolls in social media, but when you read it, sometimes you take personal things, and I know that I have to block all that things, but sometimes it's difficult for me to block that, but I think that, well, yes is the answer. Sorry.
I think for me, my answer is also going to be on the no side, but not because I haven't faced any adversity. It's mostly if I do read the trolls, if I do get pushback, it makes me want to try that much harder. And it doesn't make me want to give up. It just makes me want to prove myself that much more. So my answer is going to be no. I really haven't been in such a dark place where I think I can't do it, because I know that I can. And now I'm going to prove to whoever it was, Joe Schmo, that no, I got this, and I'm a hell of a lot better at it than you are. And that's kind of, that's my role in it. I don't want to be that person that wants to give up simply because I faced some sort of adversity. I want to take that, and I want to learn, and I want to get better.
So I'm going to say yes, because I'm a highly emotional person and I get my feelings hurt a lot. And there is a particular Twitter account that likes to scrub years and years back in your social media and bring it back to light. Well, I was
So
one
like
of the
a
unlucky
receipt of
ones who
sorts?
got, I'm nameless. They're nameless. I was one of the ones who unfortunately got retweeted over an incorrect take. Guys, we're all going to have incorrect takes. That's what makes this game fun. At the moment, I was like, everything's over. Everything bad. This is terrible. What am I even doing here? Nobody likes me. I don't know what I'm talking about. Then I had to go back to what I was talking about earlier and recenter, realize that that one troll account, the people who responded, are not indicative of my skills and who I am. So yes is the answer for maybe like a day.
When it comes to people or actions of people, nothing's made me want to quit. It's more life stuff that does that kind of stuff with me. Everybody has stuff that comes into their lives that they have a hard time dealing with. And when I have a hard time dealing with stuff, sometimes I don't want to do things. I just want to kind of shut down. But having this space and having this podcast and being able to put out content for other people and hear the feedback that I get from people who are so excited to listen, that kind of boosts your confidence, right? So if I feel like life is getting too hard, there's always fantasy football and putting out content. If it's for one person, if it's for 1 million people, it doesn't matter. Brings the confidence up and, okay, life, whatever, throw stuff at me. I'm gonna just, let's go.
No, I'll never quit you.
So, like Kacey said, sometimes it's life stuff, and life stuff bleeds into what we do because we put who we are into what we do, into what we write, into what we record, into all of that stuff. And some days you don't want to do it, but then you could eat honestly, and you're like, okay, let's go, let's do this, because people get hangry. It's a thing. All right. We'll start with Kelly. What made you decide to become an analyst?
I didn't decide to become an analyst. I work in marketing. That's my day job, and I love sports. And I just fell into this space, picking up some side gigs writing. And my initial writing pieces, if you started following me 3 years ago, were lifestyle pieces like "My team lost, I'm going to eat my feelings." And it was a dessert pairing along with what city your team is from. I did the same thing with beer pairings and things like that. And it just grew. People found out that I liked golf. People found out I was really good at prop bets and DFS for fantasy football. I bought my daughter a car off of prop bets 2 years ago. So they just started asking for advice, and I just started publishing my advice. And that's how it happened.
So I used to write, Ryan Hallam's in the back. He's the first guy that gave me a shot at writing. So I wrote for Fighting Chance Fantasy for a while. I wrote for the Fantasy Footballers for a while. And then I decided, this writing thing isn't really my jam. But I really want to get to know people. Matt Harmon back in the day had Backyard Banter, and I was like, let's get to know some of you guys out there in the space. Let's get to know how people got started in the space. So that's kind of my thing. And back in the day, I used to listen to Her Fantasy Football. I don't know if you guys remember Her Fantasy Football, but that was the jam, okay? Brandon Marianne Lee is my homie for life. And that was kind of the first thing that got me interested in putting out content anyway, because I was like, wow, these ladies, these three sisters can do it. I want to do that. So that's how it happened.
Yeah, now Kacey stole my thunder. I mean, I started writing for Fighting Chance and Ryan Hallam as well, so let's just double that round of applause again. Yeah, I didn't know that this is what I wanted to do, if I was even any good at it, but I discovered in the process of writing and of podcasting that, I was actually kind of decent at it, and I really enjoyed it, and that was the biggest part. I enjoy writing. I enjoy watching football. I annoyed all of my bar regulars when I was a bartender talking about sports. So why would I not write about it as my job if given that opportunity? And just that immersion and just repetition, honestly, over and over again, just got me hooked, man.
I got into this because I wanted to win, and I'm very competitive. So in my home league, I am the only girl, and I don't really mind because I did win my very first year. Take that. But yeah, I am just super competitive, and there was information and analysis that I thought was missing. So I ended up doing the research on my own. I would figure out how to find the stats and data, which apparently you're supposed to know in fantasy football. Am I right?
Numbers are terrible.
I know. He was hammered too, so I gotta just let that one go. But Yeah, and I ended up starting writing. I ended up being horrible at it. My first article was god awful. But it just kind of steamrolled and spiraled basically out of control and created a monster. But yeah, I got into this because I wanted to win very badly. So I just started doing the research and writing it up myself.
I started because I have passion of fantasy. But in fact, in Mexico, we don't have somebody like women that were making this analyst and writing content. And when the project Fulbright Girls told me that I will be like the girl of that project to make fantasy content, I say no, I can't. And then I realized that, wait, there's nobody else. I remember when I was in my first years in fantasy, I was searching about women's and fantasy, and I obviously Liz Loza and another more, and I was thinking, wait, I remember that I was searching about some women writing or video content to view, and in Mexico doesn't exist. Why can I be that person? Because I love being with a lot of girls or women playing. And I say, well, it's very important to me that not only in Mexico, all over the world, in Spain, Chile, Puerto Rico, play fantasy. And I think that that makes me make more content in Spanish because they want to play. They want to be in the industry, and they need to, for example, they DM me, and they don't want to ask me questions in public and social media because they are afraid that that say something bad, and they DM me, and I get very sometimes upset because they don't have the confidence to ask obvious questions, and that's why I start to making content to all these girls, women in all around the world to feel like connected.
If Stacy, real quick, if you're not following Gemma Martinez on Twitter, please do. It takes a lot of courage for Gemma to come and be on our panel. She's the one who suggested a women's fantasy football panel, which we had last year. And I'm a huge fan of Gemma, and I want to support her in any way I can. And Trophy Smack is participating in some of the Spanish-speaking tournaments this year and providing prizes. I'm working with Renee, I'm working with Mauricio and Gemma, and our social media manager at Trophy Smack happens to be bilingual, so we're trying to participate within the Spanish-speaking community and bringing them into the fold. And I wish more brands would start to also think about that language inclusivity as well.
Okay, so what made me decide to become an analyst? So last year, I went to my very first live Scott Fishbowl draft in Orlando, and I made a lot of friends, a lot of really fun friends, one of whom actually worked for Fantasy and Frames. And, played throughout the year. We had our group chat, everybody talking and everything. And then earlier this year, they sent out a message saying, look, we're trying to expand. If you're interested in doing content creation, let us know. You don't have to have any experience. And it hit me on a day at work. And I'm an attorney in my day job. And, it was just one of those days where I was just kind of done with everything, just real stressful, overwhelmed. And I thought, this seems like so much fun. I love fantasy football. I've been playing for years. Maybe this might be something, a fun outlet. Just to kind of get away from that stress, to do something that I really enjoy and am passionate about. And so I let it set for a couple days, just because I was like, I don't know. But then, my curiosity got the better of me, and I responded and, met up with those guys. And I could not be with a just more wonderful, supportive group. And I see you boys out there, and I love you guys. So I just, it just was such a great group to connect with, and so that is how I became an analyst.
So every single one of these women creates content in some way, shape, or form, whether it's Kacey's podcast, getting to know your favorite fantasy analysts, or Gemma, or Kelly, even with her golf DFS, which I still don't understand. But I just want to I don't do analysis. It's not my thing. I work with words. I'm an editor. If you love this space and you love fantasy football, but you don't want to create content, but you want to edit words or you want to edit video, there's still a place for you. You are needed just as much as they are, because I love them. But when you write, I write one article a year. When you write, you usually write your feelings, and sometimes that just doesn't come across the page as well. So if you are an editor in any way, shape, or form, you are just as needed. Okay. So I'm going to ask you one last question, and then I'm going to ask them if they have questions. Does that work for you? All right. We're starting with Stacy. What advice would you give to a female just starting out who's looking to become an analyst?
Can I have 2 pieces of advice? Is that okay?
Yes.
Do I get 2? Okay. So one, I would say, find a group that, again, is just really supportive of you and, just really welcoming and helps you and will teach you. If you have any questions, it will be there to answer those for you and kind of point you in the right direction, which, of course, is what, my Fantasy and Frames family, has done for me. And because that is just probably the biggest thing. And then 2, just consistency, just keep putting out content, doing your thing, getting stuff out there. I would say just absolutely being consistent.
I agree with you. I think that one of the most important things is being consistent. And if you want to be in the industry in Spanish or US, you have to be hardworking. You have to put all your focus, your effort to be better. And doesn't matter that somebody says something to you. Don't be respectful with other people, and either with haters. Yeah. Okay, you have to be respect with all the persons. And another thing that I heard in the FSGA in Vegas in the Winter Conference, Matthew Berry says something that make a relationship and don't be scared or afraid to make it. Okay, if you want to be in the industry, you have to say hi to everybody and feel confident about yourself and be you. Don't be someone else.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to say. Be true to yourself. Surround yourself with good people, good supportive people. Most importantly, I think maybe more so for women, maybe men, I don't really know. Ignore the trolls. Ignore them. They are going to come at you no matter what. Ignore them. Do not let them bring you down.
Yes, find your center, know who you are, and know how to deal with the haters is probably my biggest piece of advice, absolutely. But then also, don't be afraid to kind of change things up as you navigate who you want to be as a brand. We're all constantly evolving, and it's hard for women in particular because we're expected to be pigeonholed into these boxes of what a female analyst is, what we can contribute. Don't be afraid to branch out and break that box.
I mean, obviously listen to all of these ladies. They're all super smart. I would do like a podcast promo right now and tell you to go listen to my podcast, because that's why I started it, though, because when I got started in fantasy football, I had no clue what to do when it came to putting out content. Where do you start? How do you get started? Who is going to help you? Why, how do you get people to listen or read your stuff, right? And it's nervous energy coming off of you when you're trying to do it at first. But yeah, reaching out to people, not being scared to slide into somebody's DMs and be like, I've been looking at your content for a while, being a big fan of yours, and just kind of getting advice from other people who have been around the industry for a while. All these ladies I know will help you out. If you reach out to them and you ask them for advice on how to put out content or where to get started, they're all willing to help out. I know that. I am as well. So find somebody that can give you that guidance, that can kind of help you out, and you'll feel a lot more comfortable doing it.
There's not a whole lot more that I could add to this except I will say have a tangible product that you can share samples of. So when you see a call for writers or for podcasters or radio, that you're able to produce, it's called a sizzle reel, is like an industry term if you're on video. Put together clips, put together sound bites, make it easy for the person who's hiring to see what it is that you do and make it fast. We don't have time to watch a 30-minute podcast, so take your best sound bites, put them in to digestible clips, and the same then with your articles, have them all linked out, maybe create a splash page for yourself, which is another term, a landing page with an easy to remember URL that links to all of your work, has video clips. Just make it easy for the person who's hiring you to find your work and digest it.
I would also add, be true to yourself, but find a lot of people in the fantasy industry are saying the same thing the same way. Find a way to say it differently that makes people want to focus on you. It could be Kelly could write the same information that Lauren writes, but because they come at it at a different angle, you don't feel like you're reading the same article twice. So find what it is that makes you you and what's unique to you and run with it. All right, are you guys ready? Josh Hudson to the stage, please.
All right, I guess it's audience question time. Sorry, I don't have. Oh, all right. Who are we starting with? Oh, you got.
Oh, yeah, JKLOL, perfect. Ariel, raise your hand.
All right.
It's
There we
on.
go. Okay. Go ahead, Ariel.
Hi, Ariel, trash sandwiches. You're all good. One of these days. My question for all of you is, what is your favorite format, league type way to play fantasy football?
Okay.
So I'm a big fan of PPR. That's one of my things that I like. I am now becoming super obsessed with super flex. Like, I am really getting into the super flex just because I can hoard quarterbacks and not feel weird doing it. And it's fine.
I still hoard them and
yeah,
don't care.
I know. It's totally fine. I like a lot of flex spots as well. Those are really neat to have a little bit more diversity in who you can draft, and you're not, to use your word, pigeonholed into who you have and who you can start. When you have multiple flex options, you have way more people you can plug in, especially when it's Monday and someone is hurt. And you're like, oh no. But hey, well, that one just echoed. Hey,
Yeah.
I made that thing happen.
girl.
Super flex and then extra flex is what I like to do.
And redraft.
In redraft. Dynasty, you people are weird.
Wrong.
Debbie, you're even weirder. I cannot handle it, but kudos to y'all, but no, redraft only.
I love Dynasty, actually. Okay, but also my favorite of all time is Scott Fishbowl. He's right there. There's the man. You've been seeing the merch all around. Honestly, if we could go back to the question about how exactly would a woman get started in the industry? If you're not in the Scott Fishbowl, sign up, because I made so many connections through the Scott Fishbowl. Just having people in my division that are like big, huge names, people that are just coming up. It's awesome to make those connections. I've been in it for so long. I have so many awesome people that I can reach out to. That's my favorite league to play in. So there you go.
And that Scott, 3 years ago, opened up the invitations to women specifically to increase the participation of women in the league. So we appreciated the opportunity to be in.
All right.
If Lauren thinks Dynasty people are crazy, she's going to think that I am very crazy.
I mean,
IDP.
IDP is where it's at. That is not crazy. That is fantastic. Does anybody else have a question?
Yeah, I have Bill over here that has a
okay.
question.
Well, you were
See, I'm
just
blending
sitting
into the
there.
audience now.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say I came across Kelly. I didn't know she was involved in fantasy football or anything else. I started following her, chatting with her because of her support of her sister. So just be nice and people will gravitate toward you. But I have a question for Kelly. Is there any particular event in your career that you can think of that really stands out above the rest? Maybe something that even happened recently, I don't know. So anyway.
Yes. Speaking of the advice that was given of not being afraid to reach out and ask, I had been following Amy Trask on Twitter for a couple of years, and we were just casuals, not even talking about football at all. And when we were building our lineup for Women of Fantasy Football, if you caught our first episode last week of season 4, then you heard my interview with Amy Trask. And that came from a DM where I'm like, hey, want to come on our show? Yeah, I'd love to come on your show. So that is now the highlight of the last 3 years of my life. I don't think I will ever forget it. And I never would have been able to have that opportunity had I not just reached out. So don't be afraid to reach out. Thank you for asking. And my sister is a comic book artist, a transgender comic book artist, if you're curious. And that's how we met.
All right, so I've got Mike with South Harmon Fantasy Football here, and he's got a question.
I'm an avid Dynasty player. We do content, and it seems like in the space of Dynasty,
There you go.
in the space of Dynasty, it doesn't feel like there's very many women content creators at all. What are some of the obstacles or hurdles that are preventing more women from being Dynasty-focused content creators?
So to paraphrase, because I know it was kind of hard for me, I'm assuming, I just want to make sure that I understood that question. You're asking about the hurdles for women to play Dynasty and like what are those? All right, since I'm holding a mic, I'm gonna take this. When it's off season, I want it to be off season. Also, I hate trading. And you have to do that in a Dynasty league to actually like play well. So that's my biggest hurdle is trading. Because I think especially for either new players, trying to figure out that player versus pick valuation in those trades is difficult. Because I don't know what a first round pick next year is going to be worth. I don't know who it's going to be. Do any of you have anything?
Yes. Well, okay.
Go ahead. No.
Well, I like Dynasty. I'm a Dynasty girl because they connect me to another people for a long time. I know that we can make redraft leagues, but Dynasty, I think that is special because you have that spice or that thing that I have some keepers or I have my team building like I was building an NFL team. And when I discovered fantasy football, it was because it may be the same but virtual thing that you can make your own NFL team, right? But in fantasy. And I love it because I have some players that will not trade. And I like trades. Actually, I like trades, fair trades, because sometimes they will give you, oh no, not good trades, but I like trades too.
And I love to play Dynasty now. When I first started playing, I had no idea how to start because I was so nervous. I was so nervous. Everybody I knew that was like into Dynasty was like on top of their game, right? Now I'm in a trade addicts league. Now I'm out here doing that stuff. It's crazy how it's evolved. And I just find that the art of trading is fun. And not everybody agrees on the same values for players. And not everybody, understands, the makeup of rosters and how they want, to build their rosters. I was scared. So another being scared kind of moment. But it's so fun to play Dynasty, and you don't have to like Dynasty. You don't have to play Dynasty. Redraft is awesome too. DFS, IDP, like everything is awesome. But if Dynasty is something that you've been nervous about playing or you're just not sure, just jump into it. You're gonna figure out real fast if you like it or you don't. And then if you don't like it, you just tell your commissioner, look, I am so sorry. I know it sucks to have to say you don't want to be in a league anymore, but your commissioner wants to make sure that people are in the league that enjoy it. So that's my take on that.
So to talk about trading, if you are trying to make a trade with somebody, as somebody who doesn't really like trading because I don't really fully understand player valuations in those trades, don't be that person who makes a trade offer that's just a crappy trade offer because you think that she doesn't like to trade, so she's not going to know what it's worth. I ask 6 different people when I get a trade offer if it's a good trade. And if they all say no, I'm going to go. A lot of times I have that same thought, but I just need reassurance. Kelly.
I was just going to say, to answer your question specifically, I don't think there is any barrier, anything keeping women from playing Dynasty in particular. I don't think it's a women or a men thing. I think it's you either like Dynasty or you don't like Dynasty. And from some of the answers I'm hearing up here too, it's on us to also take on the research of learning how to make a good trade and learning the ins and outs of the rules of Dynasty. And that doesn't apply to men or women. So I don't know that it's just, is there a barrier or is there something that keeps women from playing Dynasty? They may not even know that it exists because the typical office pool is your classic fantasy league. So to answer your question, it's probably just spreading the awareness of Dynasty in general to the fantasy community that's coming in from their workplace or wherever.
Those are fantastic questions. They were questions that I'm sure people have but don't want to ask. Thanks for being here. So I'm going to...
All right. So we need an extra 10 minutes because we have the expert mock draft coming up, and we got to get everybody set up. But I want you guys to all give these ladies a big round of applause because let me tell you, last year at the hotel, I put them in a little room, and all these people showed up in the little room. And I said, you're going to the big stage next year for sure. Well, guess what? My buddy who's been running this room all day said that the only panel that had more people here today was Des Bryant. That tells a lot. So ladies, thank you so much for being a big part of this.
Before we step off this stage, Kelly, I'm going to start with you. Where can they find you and your content?
I would just suggest if you follow me on Twitter at Kelly and Phoenix, that's the easiest way to find all of my content. And if you're looking for celebratory hardware, TrophySmack.com.
Real quick, Kacey Kasem. The podcast is Get Real with Kacey Kasem at the Kacey Kasem on Twitter. It's KACEYKASEM.
You have such a great radio voice. I love that. You can follow me on Twitter at Britt_Flinn. Find my work on fantasyalarm.com, on the Better Sports Network. And yes, Josh, her story, even though we're on a break.
Okay, you can find me on Twitter at _Gemma Martinez and at NFL Fantasy en Español and Football Goals MX.
Yeah, you can find me at Stacy_Perez 83 and on fantasyandframes.com.
And you can find Lauren Carpenter at Stepmom Lauren. I am at FF_Leap of Faith, and follow Women of Fantasy Football at Women_FF. And listen to season 4 of the WOFF podcast this Wednesday.
All right. Thank you very much, ladies.